right, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, before we even talk any football, what are we helping make the night go a little bit better tonight? What's on your plate here?
I have my Inside BBI pint finally,
nice.
And I've got my Inside BBI shirt.
Yes, I just got that. I just got that same one. I just came in the mail.
So we're the only ones buying our own stuff. So if anyone out there wants to see these things, these
those are pretty sweet.
Yeah, they're sweet, and chicks love them. And what is that line from Stripes? Chicks dig it. You know, I rarely wear underwear, but when I do, it's usually something exotic. Well, I'll have you do it because I wasn't going to go there. All right, what are we going to talk about, John? What do we have?
Beforehand, real quick, I've got my Ratterburger Pilsner. I didn't put it in my glass just because I literally just grabbed it. I wore my Inside BBI shirt to Dallas. I wore it to the stadium. Outside, I got a couple pictures outside, but as I was walking around inside, I passed a couple Giants fans. I talked to a few. They didn't know anything. They actually didn't know anything about BBI, so I explained that and went on. But as I went around this one corner, this group of Giants fans walked past me, and this woman goes, "Hey, that's the Inside BBI guy." And I was like, "Oh yes, yeah." I swear to God, no lie. My wife heard it too. She was like, "Wait." I go,
got a groupie.
She said I was Inside BBI guy.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know. So real quick, I 2 weeks in a row. I went to Washington and I went to Dallas.
Yeah, you suck. You're a jinx.
I don't know how, dude. We've lost every game I don't go to. There was a streak. I had actually in-person Giants games. I think I've only been to like 5 which is crazy to think about over the years' time. And the first 4 that I saw, we won. We won those games. Oh. I was at the game in '93 when Brad Dallewiso kicks the 54-yard field goal to beat the Cardinals. Yeah. That was the day after my birthday in '93, so I was there for that game. That was amazing. I was like early season game against the Rams. I think what was that 2005? 2000. I can't remember what year that was. Won that game and stuff. I was at the game with the Jaguars on the Sunday night game that we played with the Jaguars a number of years ago at Giant Stadium. That was goddamn cold. All I can remember in that game was we were sitting way up, and this guy was coming around. He was, the vendors, and he's like, he was selling his hot chocolate, and I swear I'm not making this up. He'd come around, he'd be like, "Hot chocolate, get your hot chocolate." And I'm like, you know what? You got to buy from that guy. You just have to when he does that. But ever since then, every game I've gone to, they've lost. But anyway, so I saw in Washington. Eric and I were talking about this. The stadium inside's fine. Getting to it was not fine. Being around the area was not fine. Dallas is a whole different story, man. That whole area is built up. The Ranger Stadium is right next door. It's a beautiful facility. Inside it is kind of a giant mall. It is a pain in the ass depending on which end you get in, because we were down in the low section. So I was 2 rows back in the end zone. I actually was it's the same end zone that Wandell catches his and Nabers catches his and Skattebo scores in the fourth quarter. So they were coming in our direction. So I was 2 rows back. Yeah, 2 rows back there. But we came in on the opposite end of the field. You can't get around. You either have to go way up to another level, go across, then way down to get back. You can't just circle around the thing to get there. So that was a pain in the ass. But it was a lot of fun. I was surrounded by a bunch of Giants fans, a few Cowboys fans, and weirdly enough, 2 different people in 49ers jerseys in the same row that I was in.
So you had a lot of Giants fans around you.
There was a number of Giants fans around.
That's cool. That's cool. And if people haven't seen it, there's a really cool video circulating of Jameis Winston interacting with a very young Giants who had come down from Oklahoma with his folks, and it's really cool. So I retweeted it out on my feed. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty cool. So so there were Giants fans there. So what are we going to talk about, John?
Well, so all right. So
no one wants to hear what we've been talking about. So let's get to.
Well, it's interesting. Let's kind of talk about the game a little bit. I know it's a few days removed, and I just got back late last night, so we flew back because I went to Austin briefly. I had a couple things to deal with in Austin, so I flew back, got home last night somewhere around 12:30. So the game itself, it really was. It's interesting, right? What did I say the week?
Interesting.
Before? Well, what did I say the week before when you brought up the Giants were? And I said no. The game was 14-6. If they had just done anything offensively, they're in that game. And you said, yeah, but the game could have been 28,
Right.
whatever. And I'll say there's a very similar pattern here, this time on the Giants side of the ledger. The difference between those two games is Washington just they missed, right? It was a long pass that was thrown kind of badly,
Mm-hmm.
a couple other things that were the Giants were inside the 10-yard line multiple times. Multiple times. Their first big play to Wan'Dale Robinson, he gets tackled at what, the 2, 1?
2-yard line.
And then there's an after the whistle penalty on Hudson that backs them, so they lose 15 yards before they even get the next play. They're already backing up. I'm like, that is the epitome of this Giants team. No matter what happens, there's always that piece where you go, God damn it.
And we're gonna have a ton to talk about, but the stunning thing about the offense was they scored 37 points, but they were 1 of 5 in the red zone.
Right.
Which I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I'm sure it's happened, but I can't recollect the Giants team being like scoring that many points and being dreadful in the red zone. 1 of 5 in the red zone, including coming away with no points after a turnover.
Right.
And then you had 14 penalties for 160 yards, and there were 4 other ones that I know that were declined, and Dan Duggan said there were 7 total declined or offsetting. So we're talking about 21 penalties on the Giants. And so normally if you have 21 penalties and you're 1 of 5 in the red zone, you'd think, oh, Jesus Christ, the Giants scored 10 points.
Right, you got whipped.
They scored 37 points. So I mean, how many points would we have scored had they had like 5 penalties and were 4 or 5 in the red zone? So, anyways, and then we'll talk about the defense, but it's just a damn shame because they could have gotten back into the conversation in the NFC East conversation with Giants fans. I know there are, God bless you guys, the guys that are out there that are still a little bit optimistic about this team based on this game. And there are some positives, and we'll talk about the positives. But to be 0-2 in the NFC East and right off the bat and to be 0-2 overall in this division is not looking good. And there are significant issues, many on the coaching side, which I'm sure we're going to get into, that are just disheartening. But I feel bad in a way for the players because they did play hard. I feel bad for the coaching staff because regardless of how you what you think of them, you know, this is their job and they put everything into this. And Brian Daboll was as fired up as I've ever seen him. Not that that mattered much, but he was fired up. They really wanted this game. They were devastated after this loss in the locker room. And I feel bad for Giants fans who have had to endure this shit year in and year out. We've basically have become, I was thinking about this earlier, we've basically become the St. Louis Cardinals in the NFC East. And for those who don't know, back in the day, the Cardinals were that one team that everybody seemed to beat up on. But there was always, even those Cardinals would sometimes upset teams like the Redskins. The Redskins would be way better, but they would upset them. But we've basically become the other team's highlight film fodder. And this was just another example of that. And I don't think any Giants fan felt safe after Malik Nabers' touchdown. And because we've seen this before. This happened,
sure.
And it happened against Dallas back in, someone brought it up. It was like 2004, was it? There were like 13 seconds left. Yeah, there were 13 seconds left in the game, and they did the same damn thing. So, anyway, I just feel bad. I feel bad for everyone involved because it was a hell of a game, and the Giants didn't deserve to win it, but in a way they did, if that makes any sense. They made so many mistakes that, you don't deserve to win it, but they did enough that you were like, damn, that's a damn shame.
I had a question I wanted to ask, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it without I'm immediately going to be called. Someone told me when I made a post about something, and it was really benign post, but they said, "Oh, it's hard to take it because of your optimism." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
You're a pretty optimistic guy.
But being realistic or looking at a game in itself, right? Not the totality of the last 10 years, but in a particular game. you have to look at positives, negatives, potentials, and whatever. And that's just the way it is. I mean, we're not pro media people per se, but that's still, if we're going to talk about it, you have to be honest. If I just go in and go, this is going to suck, we're going to suck, this is all shitty, and this is all bad, what's the point? What's the point of even talking about it? So you have to look at it objectively. So my question to you is,
Hey, what is the point? What are we doing?
You went into the game. You went into the game believing they would lose, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yes, and I took them to lose too.
And I was right.
Well, no. But that's where I'm wondering if it, for you and for a number of other people, and myself included, I'm not taking myself out of that. Is it the fact that you believe they would lose? In fact, looked at it from them scoring 6 points against Washington, going, this team can't play freaking offense.
Right.
To watch them explode, to watch them fall behind in a time when we would see them fall behind, what would happen in the past? They stay behind. If someone took the lead on them, that was it. Not this time. Boom, we took it back. They come back. Boom, we take it back again. And not from 2 yards out because the other team gave us the ball. These were long pass plays. These were
and they did it repeatedly.
So did losing it then add sting to it because you walked in thinking they would lose? They played different and better than you thought they would,
that's a great question.
They still lose.
That's a great question. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I just so beaten down. I'm just tired of losing.
Yeah, I understand.
I hate losing. And you and I are right about a lot of things, and we love to tell the world when we're right about things, and we're wrong about a lot of things, and hopefully we admit that we're wrong. One of the things that, it's kind of a weird subject because Daniel Jones is doing so well right now, but I did say a few times that this quarterback, if the Giants do fall behind, Russell Wilson is not Daniel Jones, and he can bring the team back. So in a way, I'm proud of them. And I was ready to, it's weird. Let me back up. So my son calls at around 1:20, 1:30, and he knows don't bother Dad during the game. So I don't know why he called, but he goes, who the hell is number 55? And my daughter called me towards the end of the game, and she said, who's this new quarterback we have? So again, people are out there are going to be saying, how come Eric's kids don't know the Giants very well? And it's what I've said in the past. They've tried to like the Giants, but they've been so dreadful. They tune them out, and they got excited this year because Dad was excited. So they wanted to see the game, and they turned it on. And anyways, and so my point in this response is this: there is this excitement. There was some buildup. There was some excitement, even by fans who kind of sort of weren't real interested, and they pulled us back in a little bit. And Russell Wilson and the Giants team responded every time Dallas did something that we thought was, well, that's it. And they came back and did. Now, the darn shame is I don't know what happened to Russell Wilson in overtime. He sort of imploded there. Now, Malik Nabers came out today, whether he's covering for Russell or not, I don't know. But Malik said the last interception was on him, on Malik. He said that was 100% on. He didn't say it at first, but he said that was a communication error between me and the quarterback. Now, if Malik's telling the truth, that does get back to what we were talking before. Missing training camp matters because that might have been an issue. But then there was that weird, the ball slipping out of his hands disaster kind of thing too. So anyway, long-worded answer to you is this: I'm proud of the way they responded. And if you want to give Dallas a lot of credit in two areas, Dak Prescott still can play football. He made some really, really unbelievable throws with people in his face at times, and we need to give him credit he had a really good game, and I don't know if that's been fully recognized. And their kicker changes things. He's like an impact. He may be the most impactful kicker I've ever seen in my life, because you have to defend 20 yards after a kickoff with him because the stupid new kickoff rule, which I can't stand. And combined with this kicker, the Giants only had 20 yards to play with. And we'll get into Shane Bowen shit, but Dallas, you got to give them credit. They have an impact player kicker, and I don't know how many times you can really say that in the NFL. He changed the game. He changed the way that game. I mean, not just the fact that he had that kick, but he changes the way teams have to play the Cowboys because he's so good.
The sad part is so the Giants score, and my wife's all excited. She's like, oh, they're gonna win. I said, hold up. I said unfortunately there's a lot of time, and their kicker can boom it. I'm like, I'm kind of concerned, and I was really worried once the first down play happened. I'm thinking, okay, you got to come after him again. You got to keep him.
You mean
on his
where
heels.
Thibodeau got to him?
You got to keep him on his heels, right? You don't go into a shell because all they got to do is dink and dunk. If they get it even close to midfield is in range for this guy. So I was really surprised at how kind of we played it and how we dropped people. I'm like, what?
It was terrible. It was the worst possible defense you could possibly run. Now, some people would say if we had run man coverage and gotten burned for an 80-yard touchdown, you wouldn't be saying that. Probably not. We'd still probably be upset. But my God, you can't give him a freebie with that kicker. And they gave him a freebie. And why is Bobby Okereke, who apparently can't run anymore, even in the game at that point? Why wasn't they put in another defensive back? Why is Bobby Okereke the guy, if he's going to drop, and he did, get him out of there and put in another defensive back. Put in a safety or a corner there, but don't put Bobby Okereke. And the thing is with that play, if you saw the all-22, there was another receiver wide open at the same distance. So even if it was more wide open than Ferguson. So he had two guys he could have thrown to. So great job, defense. You dropped these guys, and they weren't even near the receivers.
And even worse, you let them have a catch. You also get a penalty, so which is declined because of the catch, but you stop the clock.
Right.
So
joy.
One of the things that I think though is this: the first game, I said the Giants offense does not help their defense at all, right? It does not put the other team into a position where they have to try to do stuff. They could just sit back. Well, that didn't happen in this game. The Giants offense did exactly what we were talking about. It put pressure on Dallas to have to produce. So if that's the case, then the guy you drafted with the third pick in the draft, the guy that you drafted with the fifth pick in the 22 draft, the guy that you signed to you trade for and sign a huge contract to, those three guys need to be together. There needs to be additional pressure, and you go after them. You don't sit there and kind of play pussyfooting around. You bring other people up. You make sure that they are so overwhelmed, at best they can dump it out short. You're not going to get a deep pass off if you bring pressure. So
because of the kicker.
And because of that's just the way this is.
That's
why you drafted
if it was
guys.
If it was a normal kicker, I can see with that amount of time left, I could see that strategy, but not with that kicker.
Well, I'll give you your reasoning for that, but my reasoning is less about the other team and more about your own team. You drafted those guys for this particular type of thing, and instead you kind of like, okay, we're bring more people, get it up there, make them guess who's coming.
Well, we have to be look. We got a problem. We have a personnel wise. We have a defense that should arguably, on paper, and again, this isn't a Giants fan thing, though I'm a Giants fan. But people around the country said this heading into the season. On paper, is a top 10 defense.
Right?
Is it perfect? No, but they have. Oh my God, the Giants have this great defensive front. Oh my God, look at the additions the Giants made in the secondary. Wow, this is going to be a good defense. They are 32nd in the league right now. They're dead last in the NFL, and they are dead last against the run, and I think they're 29th against the pass. That's a great combination. 29th against the pass, 32nd against the run, 32nd overall. This is a disaster for Shane Bowen. And look, it's always easy to blame one guy on the issues. But in this case, it's hard. It's hard to come up with another explanation why the component parts aren't playing up to a better level. Now, again, Dallas has got an all good offensive line. They have two really good wide receivers. That Turpin is starting to come out as a slot guy. Ferguson's a good tight end. Look, they've got talent, but the Giants gave up 40 points to Dallas, and every time they needed a stop in the second half, they couldn't get a stop. Now, they did get two stops in overtime, but they couldn't get a stop in the third and the fourth quarter after the very first drive. The rest of the Dallas scored on every drive in the third and the fourth quarter except the first. And it was 5 in a row, and they just could not get a stop. And it gets back to what you just said. You've got these guys, they've got to get to the quarterback, and some of them did. I mean, Burns, again, had a decent game. Thibodeau had a decent game. Abdul Carter, and even Dexter Lawrence, who I thought played a bad game again. After I looked at the film and looked at people do cut-ups on him, he actually played better than I thought he did. But for some reason, all these component parts aren't coming together. And I got to put that on the coaching staff. I'm sorry. And this isn't one of those deals like when Steve Spagnuolo came in with the Giants in 2007 and he was new and the Giants were giving up all those points in the beginning of the game because they didn't know his system. This is the second year of Shane Bowen. It's not like they don't know the system. I think we've got to come to the realization that our worst fears come true, and Shane Bowen's a horrible defensive coordinator. That's where I am right now. Maybe it's not fair. Maybe I'm piling on like everybody else. But right now I feel like we got out-coached once again on that side of the ball. And it sickens me because I'm a defense-first guy. I can't stand it, John. 32nd in the NFL is dead last. In a league that it's, again, it's points and yards are given up like crazy, and we're the worst of the worst.
Yeah, there's not a lot I can say about the defense other than if you take anything from this, and I'm probably the opposite of, I'm not a Bowen guy. I'm so far on the other side of the Bowen guy. I don't like the style, period. We've talked about this. I've said it more than once. I just don't like it. Either play a 3-4 or play a 4-3. But this weird thing that you are playing, I don't really like it. But
I've been seeing college teams are doing it now too. I don't think the Giants are an anomaly with this. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I've been starting to try to pay more attention to what other teams are doing. In this two defensive linemen front with 2 edge rushers standing up, that's not an oddity. So I was even seeing it in college football this weekend. So I don't know why teams are doing it. So I would love to get somebody to come on and explain it to us because maybe there's a rationale behind it. But I have a hard time not believing that one of the reasons we're 32nd against the run is because we're soft up front. But that's
and I'll say yeah, I'm going to step away from the run real quick, but just to more formationally. I don't like Abdul Carter with his hand in the ground inside. I don't mind an inside lineman. LT, I talked about this before. Right. The Giants move him inside. He would run up the middle. He would play spy. He would cut through the gaps, and he would time it and go through. LT never played the down lineman position, hand down over a guard, and then expect him to go through. Why are you doing that? Why isn't it Kayvon down, who's a much thicker dude than Abdul Carter, and Abdul on the outside to get his speed, to get his bendability, if that's a word, to be able to get around, to duck under, to get pressure. When you put him inside, he's got to come with force. And that gives a big, slower lineman a little bit of an advantage because while I can't compensate for your quick movement, if I can get my hands on you, I can slow you down because we're so close together and you're playing a physical position and that's not really your body style. I don't understand that at all. I just did not like the way they laid people out in that last drive for the pressure. They got pressure on that first down, and then second down was a little different. Now you can see the guys start to get they're getting gassed. They've been on the field a lot because the Giants offense would score. Right. Dallas comes right back and they're back on the field. It's very poor. To me, you've got one option, and I don't want to jump ahead to the next game, but next game after that doesn't really matter going forward. Your option is this. You basically got to start going the old the Pittsburgh Blitzkrieg from years ago. You pretty much need to be rushing all the time. You've got to bring people. You got to bring pressure. You're going to have to take chances. That's why you sign guys in the secondary. They're going to have to cover. And if they can't, they can't. But I'd rather that than be dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk because you didn't get there and you give them just enough time to pick up 7, 8 yards on 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 5. You got to come after them and you got to lay the wood on them and really enforce your will, because once you start doing that weird sort of, we're going to rush the 4 guys, but we kind of took the advantage away and we're going to drop guys. It was over. And the second they picked up the first down, I was like, shit, they're going to kick. I don't care how far it is. He's going to kick that field goal. And he's going to make it.
Right. Well, I mean, we can get into the micro details and the weeds and all this, but we would just be speculating. All I know is what they have isn't working. And there is no excuse for this group of defenders to be 32nd in the NFL. Maybe you can convince me that there are enough holes in here, but they should be middle of the pack. But okay, but we're still 15 rankings below that. It's just disgusting how badly this unit is playing right now. And I don't think it's Andrew. I don't think it's just this. So look, everybody's got their hand in this mess. So yes, you're correct that the defensive tackle is an issue, but they brought in these defensive backs who again, these weren't like, oh my God, what are the Giants doing? They signed Javon Holland. That's crazy. No, they were like, oh my God, they got Javon Holland at a pretty decent price. And they're like, oh, Paulson Deboll, as long as his leg's fine, that was a great pickup. So what I don't get again is so Shane has done some things that should be working and they're not. And he's done some things that for whatever reason and it's a sensitive subject for us is the defensive line issue, the defensive tackle issue. But he did draft somebody who people were like, oh my God, I can't believe the Giants got him there. So I know I'm going both ways on this. I'm not trying to remove Shane from any responsibility for this because his hands are all over this. But right now that we're in season and the groceries were given to the coaching staff should be doing more with what they have. For my God's sakes, there's no team in the league that would be like, we don't want Burns, Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. No, they would all be like, oh my God, give me those 3 guys. And so this was a perfect situation for them to take over the game, and unfortunately, they didn't do it. This is what we kind of were hoping. The Giants get a lead, and these guys finish it, and they had multiple chances to do that. The drives before this too, and it just didn't work. And I don't think it's because they suck. Could they have played better? Yeah. Does Dallas have a good line? Yes. But again, what John's getting to too is maybe they should have sent another guy at the same time and not played it overly safe. So, and we have to be a little bit honest. Daboll didn't play a good game. Again, now Dallas's wide receivers are really good, but Daboll did not play a good game. Tyler Nubin did not play a good game.
No, he was responsible for that running play.
Andrew Phillips was feast or famine. It was either like really, really good or it was awful. Oddly, Tay Banks and Cordell Flott got praised by the coaches after the game. I thought both of them were up and down. Again, I'd go with Flott at this point, but they seem to think that Banks played decently, even though there were a couple plays there too. But the secondary, my point is the secondary, and Javon Holland hasn't made any impact plays yet. Again, it's just 2 weeks, but still, you would hope he would make a play and seal this game. So the secondary didn't play well. The linebackers, outside linebackers, had a. You could probably even say they had a good game,
Sure.
but they didn't seal the deal. Dexter was better than I thought, but they still have another issue at the defensive tackle. And Bobby Okereke is not playing well. And now they've lost 4 of their 5 inside linebackers. And Burns had to play inside linebacker at one point. And the Giants are now signing people off the street because they're out of inside linebackers right now. So I just don't like the fact that this defense is so bad, and to me, that's got coaching written all over. I just have a hard time believing that if there's another coaching staff in charge of this personnel, they would be this bad. And I may be wrong about that, but that's just the way I feel.
I'll say
I missed that. What did Banks say?
So I said Banks played well. Thought Flott was very good. I'll say this, and this is gonna definitely sound opposite of where I normally am at. I thought Tay Banks played very physical in his tackling. He came up and made some tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage, made it a physical tackle down the field. I'm still not overly enamored with his coverage ability. He just never knows where the ball is, and that's a real problem. Cordell Flott is very close to picking passes off. This is 2 times now.
Yeah, he is.
He almost and had he made that interception, it would have been deep in Dallas territory. The one problem that I have with this game, right, is we look at it, and I went the opposite last week, but it applies to the Giants this week. If they had just not made so many mistakes early on, this game easily could have been 17 or 20-3 very early. They were dominating. They were dominating the game. So it's funny you mentioned about Dak Prescott, right? You talked about Dak Prescott. You gotta understand he still played well. The Cowboys fans that are around me hate him.
That's stupid because
every time
he was outstanding in this football game. Dak Prescott was outstanding in this.
But it's interesting to hear that from like where we will bash on certain things for our own team. I'm listening to these guys and they're like, he never looks down the field. He's got to get rid of the ball. He's holding it too long.
They're stupid. I mean, Dak was really, really good. And look, we should talk about the offense and the positive too. On our side, because we've been focused on defense and we've been very down. It's tough not to be down. Can I mention one thing since we're talking about the early in the game where the Giants should have been up? So I told you how my son called and said, "Who the hell's number 55?" So at I gotta pull this up. At 1:33, I get an email from somebody on a Coco Blanc.
Okay.
I don't know who's running the show, but whoever it is an idiot. Get number 55 out of the game. Do you people have eyes? No wonder the Giants have been doing shit the last couple of years. Get 55 out of the game today against the Cowboys. It is Sunday. Open your eyes. What is wrong with you? Are you that fucking stupid? I've mentioned this before, guys. I'm not the Giants.
Eric, get on the phone.
Your hate mail. Stop sending. BBI is not affiliated with the New York Football Giants. Contact them. Anyways.
That's awesome.
So I'm watching the game and I'm having the same reactions to everyone else. And I'm, bing, I've got this message. I'm like, I'm not the Giants, asshole. Stop emailing my son, who's 55. And I have to explain him. Anyways. So, yeah, the beginning of the game was odd in itself. I mean, you were there.
That was like an epic meltdown. Oh my God! Every time you turn around to go get the flag, we're like, "Oh, another flag." They're like 55. I'm like, "What the hell? How many times in the same drive can you get a penalty?" And then the head slap one, which I have a real problem with Daboll's bullshit when they talk to him. Can you pick a side one way or the other? But either be all player coach or be all honest, but don't be sort of a mix of both. That is not a technique thing. Who teaches a technique to just swat the guy in the head on the way by? This is not the 1977, Charger pass rush where the head slap is still okay. That is not even close to being a technique.
That's old Raiders football.
It's like, what the hell?
I'm going to take it on you. I'm going to take a stance on this people aren't going to like. Not that I'm forgiving him for this because it was unbelievable. I actually kind of feel bad for James Hudson because at least he cared enough to be that pissed off. You know what I mean? And I really believe, and they talked about this today, that he really cares. He's so into it. They have to calm him down. Now, again, I'm not trying to excuse him. I have a soft spot a little bit for players who they care so much that maybe they do stupid things. You know what I mean? I rather, as opposed to, as you've mentioned repeatedly, the Ty Bankses of the world who, business this or Dory Jackson, the business decision tackle, and I think we've seen the last of James Hudson, barring a slew of injuries, which being the Giants will probably will happen. But Marcus Bowe has clearly surpassed him. He's one of the big positives that come out of this game. And I don't know if it's really fully being recognized that he didn't play left tackle in college. Right. He was only a right tackle. So the fact that he's even playing left tackle, now the Giants did kind of put him there at times in training camp, but he wasn't, it was mostly right tackle. The fact that he can come into the game and play at that level. Now, again, Dallas isn't like a super outside pass rushing team anymore without their guy there, Carter, being there anymore. But that was an astounding thing. And it's really, if Marcus Bowe is real and they got him in the 5th round, that's just gigantic because moving forward, worst case scenario, the Giants have a left tackle in Marcus Bowe. If something, Andrew Thomas never came back, that it looks like he can play that position. So Marcus Bowe is one of the big things to me that came out of this game. Positives.
I agree. We talked about this before the game when we did the preview show. Is that I kind of felt like you almost want to make that switch. Like Hudson just was not it. He wasn't it in the first week. He lost it. You call it
Have
carrying.
you ever seen anything like that before?
The only thing that comes close is Kyle Turley a number of years ago. If you remember Kyle Turley, I think he was with the Saints at the time, where he got a freaking penalty for like basically tackling the guy. Then he ripped the guy's helmet off and threw it down the field. So he didn't get kicked out of the game. To have penalty after penalty, and these aren't just like, okay, Daboll's thing today about, the false start one wasn't really on him. I don't give a shit that it wasn't really on him. He went apeshit. He clubbed the dude in the head. He cost you yardage from the 1 yard line before the next play even happens. The first play completes. Wandell's getting tackled. You guys, we're excited. We're all, and next thing you know, there's a penalty. I'm like, wait, how is the Giants even getting that completion and they're backing it up from where it is? If there's a penalty and they're like, oh, it was after the play. I'm like, how the hell do you get a penalty after the play? And the offensive line, the pass play was way the hell down the field.
Yeah.
This dude had what clearly could be a mental breakdown. And the fact that it took a little bit to pull him off the field, I would have pulled him off mid-drive. That is bullshit. You cannot put up with that. When you do
that was odd. It was odd that he wasn't pulled out earlier.
You tell other players, right? You tell them that that's okay. Imagine if that were okay. I'll use the guy that I usually rag on. Imagine that's Tay Banks. He does something unbelievably stupid.
Right?
Are they pulling him off immediately? Hell yeah. They are, and they're putting Cordell Flott in. But you're so worried because Andrew Thomas isn't out there and James Hudson's a veteran guy that you're willing to just go, oh no, we're gonna ride this out for a little bit. Bo should have been out there, or move Illuminor. I don't give a shit. You get him off the field.
It was odd. And the only thing I can come up with is based on the commentary from coaches and players since that happened, right or wrong, I think he's a very popular player with with his teammates. And so that's the only thing that, to me, maybe that factored in the decision that they thought they gave him the benefit of the doubt, and they said, well, he's not going to keep this up. But I agree with you. At one point, they should have pulled him. Look, in hindsight, you could say that cost them the game. I think other things cost them the game later on. You never know what would have happened and could have happened. And
well,
stuff like
you
that.
could. I will say this. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to stay right with what you just said. You could actually say that this happening may have actually saved at least the Giants to be in the game, because I think his play would have continued to go downhill if they left him out there. I think Bo just settled shit down. You did not hear his name get called. And I don't care.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, and it wasn't that he was perfect, but you never heard his guy. So
right. And Cy brings up, well, he's not as strong yet and whatever. I don't really care about that. I don't care about that at all, because you know what I saw? His guy did not sack Russell Wilson. His guy's not running free. Bo wasn't getting penalties. For a rookie, he settled it right down. The Giants of 1988 juggled their offensive line numerous times until they got to the end of the year, when they finally settled in with Elliott, Roberts, Oates, and then it was Godfrey, and Moore played a little bit at tackle. But ultimately, they settled that whole thing down. Riesenberg was the right tackle later on. They settled all that down by multiple changes. I don't think the Giants are where they want to be just yet. If Andrew Thomas plays, Bo, to me, needs to be on the field. I think you put Bo at right tackle, and I think you slide Illuminor in at guard.
And a lot of people have suggested that. There was even a comment here. Here it is. It's going to be interesting to watch, because we've heard from multiple coaching staffs, from multiple teams over the multiple decades, you play your best five.
Right.
You'd be hard pressed not to say that Marcus Bowe is looking like one of the best 5 offensive linemen. The fly in the ointment here is this. Illuminor has played guard in his past, but he has not practiced at guard while he's been with the Giants. So could he pick it up? It's probably like riding a bicycle for him. But do you expect them? Do you expect this coaching staff to do that? Do you expect them to move Illuminor? I don't expect them to do that.
Oh.
I could see if this was another coaching staff, I could see it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic. I don't.
No, I think it was a great question, because I was the one who was saying last year, move Illuminor to left tackle. Why are you bringing in guys off the street? And then they're like, oh, too many movement. No, it's what best suits your team. So do I think they'll do it? No, I think they'll stubbornly stay with exactly the way you said. Illuminor is a professional offensive lineman. He can play guard. That's not exactly overly complicated. He can play tackle. He can play guard.
Well, he can play guard because he's played guard before, but it is a complicated move. Some people are saying Bo can move to guard. Bo has not played guard before. So
see, Bo's a rookie. I don't know. You could just make that statement and say, let's just do that. Illuminor is a pro NFL offensive lineman and has been for years. Does he know his responsibilities?
Well, this is a moot conversation, John, because he has played guard. So, but I'm saying if he had not played guard before, it's not that. I mean, and other people on this Giants team have already talked about it, that it's not, when they were talking about Evan Neal, they were saying it's not an easy transition just to move from tackle to the guard. Maybe it was 20 years ago, but it's just not.
Did Eric Flowers do better at guard than he did at tackle?
What?
Did Eric Flowers do better at guard than he did at tackle? And he had never played guard before.
Sure. But Eric Flowers had reps at guard in camp. So,
wow.
Eric Flowers refused to play guard for the Giants. He said, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
This is actually an interesting point by Jay Snow too here. Oops, no, not that one. The other one.
I was going to say that has been brought up.
This one is the Illuminor technically can't refuse the coaching staff. I mean, he could throw a hissy fit, but it is a contract year, and Illuminor has been very vocal the last 2 years on Twitter about wanting to get paid.
Right.
And being moved to guard would be for him.
But who's
professionally he would not be happy with that.
But that's not, is that, so Jay Snow, just to be clear, were you saying the Giants won't do that because of that, or that Illuminor won't do
I think
that?
he's saying Illuminor.
Those are two different things. Yes.
Right. No, Giants, it's not a Giants thing. The Giants aren't thinking that way. The Giants don't want to pay Illuminor more. They'd want to pay him less. Illuminor wants to get paid. So if Illuminor wants to get paid, he wants to stay at tackle. But anyway, it's a great question. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do moving forward. Now, Andrew Thomas did practice today. They did not have a padded practice day, but he practiced. Dan Duggan seems to think there's a decent chance Andrew Thomas will play this week. And if he does Bo go back to the bench? My guess is yes. Right or wrong, my guess is he becomes your new swing tackle, and maybe something changes moving forward after this weekend if somebody really struggles. The other thing that we have to keep an eye on is John Runyon came out of the Dallas game really banged up. He had x-rays done on his back. He said he heard a crack in his back, and they had x-rays. Now, he practiced on a limited basis today, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But if John Runyon's hurt again, then what John's talking about really could come into play, about putting Illuminor at guard, because then they might have to do something like that. So in that case, John, they may use that as the excuse or rationale to make that kind of move too. So we'll have to see what's going on with John Runyon as well too.
And it's hard too, because if you ask me, and I know there's going to be disagreement on one part of this, who are your best five? Andrew Thomas would be left tackle if he's healthy, right?
And he's going to be rusty. People better be.
Well, that's the other part.
Better be ready that Andrew Thomas isn't going to look great.
Right. But I mean in general.
Yeah. Yes. Andrew.
So give it even a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So it's clearly Andrew Thomas and Illuminor are your top two right now. Bo's probably three, right?
I'm thinking, just if I'm putting five together, right? I know you might not even agree with me. I know other people won't agree with me. I would rather see Van Roten at center than JMS. Van Roten has a little bit more size. He's a little aged. He doesn't move as well as he used to, but I think he can play center just as well, if not better, than JMS.
I don't understand why Van Roten struggles at guard, why you would put him at center. At that point, I'd put Schlottman at center. I don't. To me, I think people are romanticizing again the end of last year with Van Roten playing center. I don't remember Van Roten being like, oh my God, he's a really kick-ass center. So if you're going to bench Van Roten, I mean, if you're going to bench JMS, why not go to the backup center? That's me, but
just because he's the backup center, again, he's the backup center because because your swing guy ended up being the starter, which is the thing I said. If they could have gotten a better right guard, now Van Roten's the swing in the back, Schlottman's probably not even on the team. But because Van Roten's the starter at guard, you had to have a legitimate center to back up.
I don't know what I'm saying to you, and I don't know the answer to this, is Schlotman may be a better center than Van Roten. I don't know if he is or he isn't. I'm just saying I just wouldn't automatically assume Van Roten's a better center than Schlotman is. Maybe he is. I don't know. I don't think they're benching James. Again, I think this is a moot where we should talk about other things like Wan'Dale Robinson and stuff like that. I think this is
really
moot,
like, by the way.
I think this is a moot conversation because I don't think they're going to bench JMS. So
No.
So let's not waste time on. Let's talk about Wan'Dale Robinson.
I did see a post in here earlier that someone made fun of the fact that Dallas has to be really bad if Wan'Dale had a big game, and I completely disagree with that. The Giants actually used Wan'Dale finally in a number of different things, and he burned his man down the field. He is a talent. He gets targeted a lot for a little guy. He's being used a ton. I think our lack of having anybody else is really, it's going to wear him down, though. I don't think he can maintain the number of targets that he's been getting week after week, because he does take some pretty big hits. I don't know if you see Wan'Dale gets cracked.
Well, let's be fair here. All right, so we got to be honest too. So our position, you're in my position coming into the season a month ago or a couple months ago was we're going to find out if these wide receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton, were different animals with a real quarterback, and we were hoping they would be. We didn't see a lot out of them in training camp, and we didn't see a lot out of them in the preseason. If anything, remember, people were shitting all over Wan'Dale, and for good reason, in the preseason, because he had that bad drop pass in the preseason game. So the Tide, including your and my conversation and Size and others, was we got a problem not just with Jalen, but Wan'Dale needs to be replaced, and probably Slayton needs to be replaced. This game, if he can build on this, is a game changer for the Giants moving forward in this sense. They will, now he's going to be a free agent, but if he is what Russell Wilson called a couple of weeks ago and people laughed at him, he said that he's Tyler Lockett, and I posted that and people were like, oh, give me a break, Russell. Today, he said the same thing. He's used the word superstar now. I'm not going to go that far, but he mentioned Tyler Lockett again. If Wan'Dale Robinson can even be 80% of Tyler Lockett, then the Giants can check off a big, huge need for them. So if he can be the guy he was in Dallas against other teams, and Theo Johnson rebounded, right? Theo had a decent game, not great, but he was what we were at least hoping the bare floor minimum would be in this game. But if those guys can do what they did against Dallas, then the complexion of what the Giants need to do in the offseason to get the offense to a different level changes. So let me step back. If you're one of those people who thinks the Giants really need to focus on keep adding players to the offensive line, wide receiver was a big need. Now, if they can say, well, we were covered in the slot thing, then they're like, okay, that need is filled and we can really focus on the offensive line. Or if you want to add another cornerback or a defensive tackle or whatever you want to add. Sure. But Wan'Dale Robinson having that kind of game, it was a career game for him. And let's not minimize the play he made on 4th and 4. That was ginormous. Yes. That was a huge play. And so was the one on 3rd and 25. I mean, those are the kinds of plays you don't expect out of him. I mean, this was gigantic.
He's been targeted 18 times in the first 2 weeks. For a little guy, he's getting targeted a ton. With 197 total yards and receiving. I don't know that he can maintain a 9 target a week kind of a game. And the problem the Giants have, and I see Andrew mentioned Jalen Hyatt. The Giants basically played Bo Collins. I didn't look at the snap counts, but I was watching the game. He was not on the field very much. I didn't see Gunner on offense at all. And then Jalen never came on the field, period.
Jalen was the only player not to play on the Giants roster.
So the Giants are playing basically with 3 wide receivers. That's their big thing. Their 4th guy is Collins, and
that's been their MO. And that's been their MO moving forward. I mean, they've always been like, unless someone's hurt, those 3 guys are the 3. And they don't do a lot of this other stuff, like bringing in a 4th and a 5th.
So section 125, why can he not maintain? Because some of those targets, he's getting absolutely obliterated. He's going to wear
Wait,
it
what
down.
was the question?
He's saying, why can't he maintain nine targets a game? They're also using him on special teams. I mean, this guy is getting a ton. You've got to be careful that you don't just wear this dude out in the first 9, 6, 7, 8 games, and all of a sudden you got nothing.
Well,
Again,
I'm writing Wandale and Malik. I know what you're getting at, John, but I kind of agree with that. And you're not wrong. He's tiny. He's probably going to get hurt. But I'm writing the horse. I'm writing.
Well, I mean, I get that, but you've got to include some of the other. First off, Darius Slayton's got to get a couple more targets. He was open. Now,
wait, can I just address this real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Snow, I disagree, I think, with what you're saying here. I apologize if I don't understand you. Dallas didn't leave Wandale open. Wandale got open.
Agreed.
So it wasn't Dallas ignoring Wandale. Wandale got, and including against double coverage at times. So Wandale had a game. You may not. I mean, so one of the things I hope John and I come across is we will admit when we're wrong. And I hope Giants fans will do that too. Wandale, again, one game doesn't make a trend. So again, we have to see. But this was a gigantic game for him. And the Giants targeted Wandale a ton last year. So how many targets did he had?
He had well over 100 targets last year.
He had a ton, 110, something like that. Yeah, he had a ton of targets last year, but they were for 5 yards a catch or whatever it was, 6 yards a catch. This was down the field. So good. Two trends got broken in this game. Wandale did damage down the field, 16-something yards a catch. And Russell Wilson looked for Wandale down the field and over the middle. So that was and we also, there's so much to talk about. If we go long, guys, I apologize, but there's so much to talk about. We need to talk about Russell Wilson. So I'm sorry, and again, I got to mark him off for the overtime thing. Again, I didn't like throwing the ball up like that. Now Malik says that's on him. I didn't like the thing, but beyond, if you can kind of discount that, this was one of Russell Wilson's best games in his career. This was a fantastic game, and I get it. Dallas doesn't have a great defense, but they still have Diggs. They still have players that they're not a top tier defense, obviously. But Russell Wilson was playing a not a top tier defense last week too.
Right.
And they struggled.
We had 6 points.
We didn't even get a touchdown. Russell Wilson had a game, and those throws were fantastic. And there were plays that he made where he had people in his face at times. And so again, John and I were kind of like, well, when are we going to switch to dart? When are we going to switch to dart? This kind of taps that down a little bit, at least in the short term. And we'll see what they do against Kansas City. But Russell Wilson, where the hell did that come from? In addition to Wandale Robinson. And so I thought there were positives on the offensive side.
I will say, I'm trying to remember who put the quote. I think it was Jay Snow. Dallas left Wandale open a ton. I disagree. One of the things though that happened is when he gets one-on-one with some of these guys, he's very quick, and they're overcompensating for Malik Nabers.
As they should, because they couldn't cover him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And Darius Slayton was left one-on-one. There was a couple times I kept calling it out. I'm like, you got to go to Slayton. And I want to go back to one of those things in a little bit. So remind me before we switch to anything else. There's something else I want to cover about that.
With Slayton?
With the passing game in general.
Okay.
That pass play, though, to Wandale, the catch in the end zone, that is not an easy catch. He didn't have a lot of room.
No, that wasn't easy at all.
That was a great pass.
And to drag his knee like that was really good. Yeah.
That was an excellent play. Wandale was really half a yard away from scoring on that other big play down the middle where he got tackled. Yeah. And the only reason the Giants don't get a touchdown there is because goddamn James Hudson gets a penalty right after, and they move him back. Those are some plays that could have been borderline daggers to Dallas early on. I think it would have taken Dallas mentally out of it. The Giants left them in, kind of like Washington leaving the Giants in. The difference is
Shane Bowen's defense never lets anybody.
Well, the Giants offense let him in, though. That's the problem, right? Shane Bowen's defense did okay in the first half. The Giants offense just, when they had the opportunities, they didn't put the points on. If they had scored the way they did in the second half with the opportunities that they had where they were inside the 10, This game is possibly over at halftime. Dallas is possibly bickering with each other. There's a lot of stuff happening there. Their defense was getting shredded. They could not stop them. The Giants stopped themselves.
Oh, John, I love your optimism. I just don't have that kind of count.
It wasn't really I was there. I saw it.
I know.
They still lost, but I mean, those were some of the things. So Wandell, to me, I've always liked Wandell. I think he's limited to a degree because of his height, for sure, and his weight. You can't use him the way that the Giants were using him before with Daniel Jones, which was basically getting him lit up. I mean, he was getting absolutely creamed. This is a little bit different. I hated the way they switched things up on that drive in overtime. It kind of everything just sort of the whole mindset seemed to change. That's another thing we could talk about is Brian Daboll is a very it's almost like he has two trains of thought when he does things. Like 1 minute he's doing one thing, and then all of a sudden we just kind of stop. And I know Kafka's the play caller, but come on.
Well, that's Kafka. That's you got.
You can't just be.
I'm not trying to defend Brian Daboll, but Kafka's the play caller. So
there's something weird about the way they do what they do. But anyway,
I just want to address this too.
Yeah.
I was not advocating for the benching of JMS. So I just want to correct that.
Yeah.
Again,
so
I
you guys would
one,
and I wasn't saying bench him either. I was saying if we went with the best 5, but that's okay.
I don't think JMS had a bad game against Dallas, but again, Dallas isn't real strong up front. We're going to get a much better read on JMS moving. JMS was hurt again though today. He was limited in practice. That's been another problem with him. But we'll get a better read on JMS against teams with real defense
and the Chargers too.
Before we talk about Daboll, because I think that's a more involved conversation. Skattebo should be starting, right?
Well, yes, and I want to ask you, what do you think happened that all of a sudden Tracy didn't? Singletary was on the field for the first play of the game. Why was Tracy not? What's going on?
I think well, this is going to has a pejorative word, a pejorative phrase. It's the conspiracy theorists are speculating that it was the fact that he criticized the play call that you and I criticized, the pass the bow against the Commanders, so that he was being penalized. I don't think that was it. If that was it, I don't think he would have played. I think it's a kind of a little bit like the situation with like at corner. I think they just will play with different guys at different times depending on the opponent. Look, I like Tracy, but Tracy has not had a strong start this year. And he needs to play better. And
he had a bad
nice
drop.
thing is they have a ability to go with a hot hand right now. And I think Skattebo, look, I got to be careful of my own subjective biases. I just like the guy. I just like, I mean,
he just brings an energy though. It's a little different.
Well, he brings energy, but anybody who was a kid and was running into telephone poles to toughen himself up when he was like 8 years old. I have that Homer Simpson quote. Doctor thought I might have brain damage. You know the story with Skattebo when he was a kid.
Yes,
the older kids wouldn't let him play football, so he would run into the telephone pole to toughen himself up. Anyways, to me he can become an emotional spark plug for this team. And again, I don't think he's gonna be a superstar, but my God, he brings a certain degree of toughness. Imagine what he would be like if you had a power offensive line in front of him.
Oh, sure.
I mean, he would wear you the hell down if he was with a team that was like the Eagles or something like that, or the Ravens or somebody like that. I just like what he brings to the table, and I would play him. And it sends a message to Tracy: you've got to play better. You can't drop passes. And Skattebo dropped the pass too, which was very costly. I thought Skattebo had a little bit of nerves in this game. I think that's going to get out of his system. But Skattebo's got very natural hands, but he had one drop in this game and he had one ball that he really bobbled a lot. But that's not him. So I expect him to get those nerves out of his system. But right now, I think Skattebo, I would play Skattebo. Not that doesn't mean I wouldn't play Tracy. I would play Tracy a lot, but Skattebo would be my number one guy right now. And I tell you what, I'm not getting this. Let's put Devin Singletary in for a player there. That to me is a waste. And I didn't like the screen play that they tried to run with him. again, I think Devin Singletary right now is the guy who plays if somebody's hurt back. And I wouldn't force him into this thing where we got to get him his touches. I don't understand that use of Singletary at this point, but you may feel differently.
Yeah, no. I'm 100%. I don't really understand. He doesn't really bring anything to the table. He has veteran leadership, but we're not a team that really needs veteran leadership per se. We need emotion. We need physicality. We need a spark plug kind of player, and that's more what Skattebo is. Tracy's I'm going to use the term, and I got to be careful because all these guys play in the NFL, so they're all tough. They're all this. Tracy's a little soft on some things. If he gets grabbed in the shoulders when he's upright, he does tend to get pulled down very easily. It makes it harder.
Not Skattebo.
But it makes it harder if you're
Wasn't
trying
that great? Get off
he's
me.
plowing through people and just he's so physical. Now, one thing real quick before we kind of just look ahead to the week, and I know we'll kind of keep it tight.
Well, you wanted to talk about
there's two things. The first thing with the offense that bugs me the most, over and over and over again, I kept calling it out. The Giants would come up to the line, right? Wilson's on the line. They would put somebody out wide. Anybody but Nabers. Wherever Nabers went, Diggs would follow him. They would move over. Sometimes it would be the back. Tracy was out there one time. It was Slayton was out there one time. Theo Johnson was out there one time. And I want to say Skattebo was out there one time. They got out there, and there's no freaking defender out there. The defender is taking his time getting over there. Snap the goddamn ball. Get ready and take advantage of that. There were multiple times where a bunch of us in the crowd are like, nobody's covering him. Just snap the ball. Yeah. There was nobody out there, and I want the Giants to stop being so goddamn deliberate. Get up there and be like, okay, if I see that, I'm gonna let you know the next time you go out there. If they don't cover you, be prepared. I'm gonna call whatever I say. Omaha, Tallahassee. Right. I don't give a shit what you call it. Whatever I say, we're going on the next sound, and I'm gonna throw it. You be ready. There was numerous times because the other team is more concerned with where is Nabers, where's the Giants set up overall. They left the other guy wide open. Right. And I'm like, you got to take advantage of that. Right. That's the one big one. The second thing I want to bring up is what Cy brought up in the review, which was about Jackson Dart. He doesn't understand why Jackson Dart would be brought into the game just so you can see him hand the ball off.
I do. I disagree.
I totally disagree, and I know exactly what they're doing. If you do that over and over again, right? And they did it multiple times. Now, the third time they did it, Jackson kept the ball, but he slipped. One of these times, and you need to keep doing it. You probably got to go another 2-3 more times where you just hand the ball off. But one of these times, he's not going to hand it off. And when that happens, the defense is going to expect the Giants are going to try to run a little either handoff or quarterback run. And if he doesn't, somebody's going to be open.
I'm approaching it a completely different way than you are. You're looking at it at a micro level. I'm looking at a macro level. I don't care if he runs or throws or whatever. I'm looking at him getting acclimatized to being in the game and and getting those nerves out of his system. So it's kind of like what they did in the preseason where Daboll didn't tell him he was going to go into the game ahead of time at a certain point. And it's all of a sudden it's like, get in the game. And that's what he's trying to get him ready because, again, football is not a video game. It is not Madden, and that's one of the biggest issues that a lot of fans don't seem to understand, especially when they start saying, "Move this player here, move that player here," or you can bring somebody in, but they don't understand there's an emotional pressure element to all of this too. And one of the reasons why quarterbacks fail in the NFL is they can't handle the pressure, they can't handle the emotions, they can't handle the situation. So I like the fact that he's just already bringing him in just to get the butterflies out of his system. So when he does come in for good, some of that's already out of his system. So I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think the reason he's in there, I don't think the reason in there is tactical. I think it's strategic, if that makes any sense. I also want to address this. One of my pet peeves, and I don't think this was early in the game. What I'm talking about, we're talking about the turnover. When did was the intercept? What quarter was the interception? Was that third? I'm trying to put this game out of my head. Andrew Phillips's interception. What quarter was that in? Was that second or third?
That would be in the second half. So it'd be, I think, the third quarter.
Third quarter, yeah. I'm going to do my get off my lawn old man moment here. I don't like analytics. I don't like this thing. I grew up in an era where you took the points. I don't like this stuff. And you can point to probably 100 times where I'm wrong, that it was right to go for the touchdown. I don't like it. I come from the old Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin philosophy, get the points. So when the Giants offense was in the red zone once again, I would have kicked the field goal there. And I said it at the time. I don't like coming away without points, especially after a turnover. And I don't know if that's what you're referring to here, Donald, but that was my problem was, and again, if it is the third, I think it was the third quarter. It was later in the game, not early in the game. But I don't know how you feel about it, John, but I didn't like going for the touch. I didn't like going for it on fourth down there.
Yeah.
If it worked, it would have looked brilliant, but I just don't like it.
I agree. I thought they would have kicked that one. What I don't like is what happens when they get inside the red zone, or specifically inside the 10. A lot of the plays that they call, those passing plays that they call, are like a quick out, and it's always to Wilson's right. The only one, go back to Washington, was the weird play where you're trying to do the tackle eligible and he rolled to the left. Everything else is to the right. And it's to the short side of the field. Okay. So you've really eliminated, you're counting on two things of happening. One, you're counting on everybody kind of, quickly catching motion so that one guy just sneaks out. So that's one. Two, you're counting on that no major pressure comes up right away through the middle that forces the quarterback to get out faster.
Right. Maybe it's a height issue too. Maybe he can't see. Maybe he can't see.
And it could be, but I just hate those. We ran the plays twice, and they both ended up going to the right with only essentially one guy coming across, one guy going out. So you left yourself with one option. Yeah. I don't like that at all.
This is where I would like to have had Theo Johnson and the tight end that we let go that's in Miami be on the field at the same time.
Dulcich,
and just have two big tight ends, one on each side, and have one of them body up for the ball. And maybe Fedoni can be that eventually, but I suspect that if you're correct, and I'd have to go back and look, but I have no reason to doubt you. Maybe Wilson can't see very well when he's that tight in to the red zone, and he can't see like a Wandale crossing the middle or whatever. So I'm just speculating. So we're at the 1 minute 30 mark. So I think we should. No, we're not. Hour. We're at 1 hour. Oh, we're under.
We're 1 hour.
We're good. Okay. So anything else on offense that we should talk about before we talk big picture? I don't know if you want to talk about Daboll.
Well, Daboll,
you seem to be very opinionated about his press conferences, but
I hate the way he speaks. I hate the way he says. As far as the offense goes, there really isn't anything left to say. We've covered everybody. I don't understand the whole point of having Hyatt active when he doesn't play a single down in the game. There's really, what's the point? I mean, if he's not going to play anything, he's not going to play specials, he's not going to get even one play to run deep down the field, then what the hell is he on the field for? Who cares at that point? I mean, there's no point in even having him out there. When you ran a bunch of pass plays and some of your guys were a little gassed, he still wasn't on the field. So if you're never going to play him, why have him active? Daboll, the part that I have a real problem with is if you go back to 22, he started his Giants head coaching career off as a very riverboat gambler kind of guy. The 2-point conversion in Tennessee,
right.
The Green Bay game where you've got Jones is banged up in that game. The Giants really were.
Well, he did it, and he just did it with the play that we're talking about, though. He went for it on fourth down, though.
But that's not the same thing. We were very tricky when we did shit. We rolled it. We ran a reverse to a tight end. We were doing different things. And this.
You mean like they passed him Bowen in the opener?
Yeah, but see, okay, now that's different. Why?
Because it didn't work.
No. That's different because here you were on first down, your first time in the red zone, and you call that play on first down. You haven't established a running game. You haven't established a passing game inside the red zone.
But John, what I'm getting at is I think what's bothering you isn't that they're not doing it. It's not working anymore. So that's what I would be saying. They're still doing this stuff, but it's just not working.
I'm going to disagree. They still they don't. That one play, again, you set nothing up, so that means nothing to me. That's just a guy running a pass pattern. It's just a different guy. It didn't matter. But when you got inside and you ran on first down, you ran on second down, you then call the same, I'm going to roll out and throw. We're not running guys in. We're not spreading out wide. We're lining up the same and running very similar plays. Then you get down in the red zone again and you do the same goddamn thing all over again. At what point do you change shit up? Go up tempo. Go in with two backs.
Right.
And then have a backs take off from the backfield. They spend so much time on motion and setting other guys up and moving them around that I sit there going, how much mental capacity do these guys have that they're okay, I got to move here. And by the time the ball snapped, you spent so much energy just moving around to do
that's
nothing.
not really different than what other teams do, though, too.
But to do nothing, though, it's literally accomplishes nothing. It seems to be almost a formula of expectation. So my point is, he gets these kind of things where he's sort of attacking, and then overtime happened. I called out the goddamn play again before it happened. The pass that was the short pass to Skattebo that went nowhere. I think Skattebo dropped the ball. That was so obvious. That's what they were going to do. That I wasn't the only person in the crowd. I'm like, they're throwing at Skattebo. There was no reason to do that. You had been attacking Dallas down the field the entire game. Overtime changes nothing. Keep your goddamn offense moving the way. Don't all of a sudden because that's a passive play.
If I'm sitting next to you in a game and you keep calling out the plays, I'm going to tell you to be quiet and drink your beer.
And then after a while, you're going to be like, what are they going to run this time? I'll be like, here we go. This is what's going to happen.
Look, Daboll's got a bigger again. And I think this is why you and I are working well tonight together, because you're looking at the micro stuff. I'm looking at the macro stuff. He's got a bigger problem. He's not winning in the NFC East. He can't beat that Dallas. He can't beat Philadelphia. Now he can't beat the Commanders. He's 0-8 in his last games against the NFC East. And now it looks like he's picked the second defensive coordinator in a row that has a bottom tier defense. So the problem moving forward is how does he keep his job, and should he keep his job? And I think you and I need to do a show that gets into that at some point, and that will probably evolve. But he's, obviously if he doesn't win any more games, he's not going to be here. And then what happens with Dart? That's a whole other question. But if he does survive, do you allow him to pick another defensive coordinator again? And what defensive coordinator would want to come here, realizing that Daboll is on the hot seat as hot as it can possibly be? So why would any defensive coordinator want to come here when they realize that Daboll's on the verge of getting fired, which was a problem 2 years ago when he had to settle for Bowen in the first place because his two first guys that he wanted turned him down. So there's a bigger problem with Daboll right now. He's got to start winning some football games or he's toast. And we'll have to start to see if the press conferences get strange like they did with Joe Judge and all of that. So we'll have to see. So they had to win. They didn't have to, but they're going to have to pull off some upsets soon against somebody, or this is, like you and I said, it's going to spiral out of control. Can they beat Taylor Swift and the Chiefs on Sunday? Can they beat? They're going to have Eagles. What is it? Is it Eagles? Denver Eagles? Is that what it is? Oh my God! There's that stretch. The only theoretically winnable game that they might be favored is the Saints game, and the Chargers look really good. So where are the wins? Somebody said earlier, when does our first win come? So maybe the Saints. I don't know, but we got a problem right now because they drafted a quarterback that the head coach picked, but does the head coach survive? So, and then because of that, does Dart have to play even if Russell Wilson? I mean, there's so many this whole thing's a mess. I don't know what you think about all this, but the whole thing's I keep trying to play this scenario out in my head, and I don't know how this is going to go out because it can go in any different direction.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
and it's a question basically for any Giants fan. If the Giants had held on and won that game against Dallas, does any of this change for you?
Yes.
So literally, of the losing 40-37 in overtime is a massive difference between winning.
As silly as it sounds, winning cures a lot of ills.
Sure. Okay.
So if
Okay.
they had won and they were 1-1 in the NFC East and had just come off an emotional, big, awesome win, exciting win that had some momentum going into a Kansas City game where Kansas City isn't playing very well, and if they could somehow have pulled that out and been 2-1, this would have changed the whole narrative on. But 0-2, you and I look, we can't go back on what we said.
Oh, I agree.
0-2 is 0-2, and we both said if they go 0-2, they're screwed, and that's where they are right now. But yeah, I think if they had pulled this off on Sunday, that they bought themselves time.
The narrative would have changed slightly. Yeah,
narrative would have changed.
So
they would have bought themselves time.
To me, if they beat Kansas City at home, if they
That's
somehow,
a big deal.
If they maintain their offense plays well again, and it seems like now we're clicking. Now we're attacking down the field, and they come out with a victory, which is big because Kansas City needs this game even more than the Giants, really, because the Giants weren't expected to be, by some teams, that great. Kansas City is expected to contend for the Super Bowl. They're 0-2.
Right. But they're getting their wide receiver back. You saw that too. What's his face? Their speed guy. He's going to play this weekend. So one of their wide receivers are one of the missing pieces on Casey's offenses. But look, the problem we have is this: Steve Spagnuolo, Shane Bowen, Andy Reid, Brian Daboll. And it's the AFC champions against.
Agreed.
And we're the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL. And so is it impossible for the Giants to pull this off? I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because that'll be our next podcast. They certainly could upset the Chiefs. But look, the Giants locker room was pretty depressed after this loss. So this is going to be a really tough week for them to try to rebound from this. And Kansas City are, they're the AFC champions. They're multiple Super Bowl champions. They can't go 0-3. This is everything. Sure. And the other thing that worries me a little bit, and this is again me, it's again, and people are going to go, oh, don't go down that path, Eric. I've seen enough goddamn Kansas City Chief games on prime time where they've gotten the right call at the right moment and gone, what the hell was that? And it didn't have anything to do with the Giants, and it didn't have anything to do with the NFC. And it's like, oh my God. And you'd say, well, that happens all the time. But there was, what is it, last year or the year before, it was like almost every single game they got that call when they needed it to turn.
Well, they even got it against us when Joe Judge was the head coach.
Yeah, in that game. And I get it. There are a lot of people out there that think that that's just bullshit and that's conspiracy, but I can't get it out of the back of my head that there are favorable calls that go Kansas City's way when they need them. And does the NFL really want Kansas City to be 0-3? So so if the Giants pull this off and get the 1-2, again, do they get back into it a little bit and they get you and I are like, oh yeah, maybe they got a chance against the Chargers or whatever. Look, if they're 2-3 in a couple of weeks, I'll be thrilled. I'll be thrilled. But do they get there?
So we'll have, because we haven't decided on the time, but we'll do one on Saturday.
Worthy. Thank you, Dave.
We're going to do that one on Saturday. We'll preview the game, but we'll also do a question and answer thing with chat. So we'll have questions prepared ahead of time, and it can be, longer term questions. Because one of the things that I think you brought up that I want to talk about on the next podcast is Dexter Lawrence is a guy to watch right now. I know Jordan Renan had his thing, and whether there's a lot of truth to that particular piece or not, I can honestly say we brought this up before. I brought this up before.
What's Jordan Renan's piece?
He was basically saying now that Dexter Lawrence might be wearing a little thin with all the losses, and that it's starting to get to him year.
That's got to be.
But that being said, I did make a statement, whether it was early last year or mid portion last year. There comes a point where I'm considering trading Dexter Lawrence. And the reason is we haven't won anything with him. And at some point, you can't wait year after year after year with a guy who's 330, 340 pounds.
Yeah, you've brought that up before.
They start to wear down, and it's not changing everything. Right now, you have a lot of money invested in your outside guys, and that's fine. You might want to go spend less money on some really big-ass defensive tackles to just eat up the middle and let those guys go after it and give up a little bit of that extra. I'm not saying do it now, so before people start killing me about it, I'm saying it might come a point where you might want
It
to
would have to be a monster deal for me, though. I mean, because he's still playing. To me, it'd have to be a monster deal. It would have to be like something where you're like, holy crap. I'm talking about like two first-round draft pick kind of things and other things, other considerations. So I want to address this for Kevin. There are no injury designations during the week. The only time that happens is Friday. You must be looking at some website that is saying because some player is on the injury list, he might not play. So Tracy's not. The injury designations won't come out until Friday. Tracy was one of 13 Giants on the injury report today. So that's probably somebody like ESPN or somebody probably put a Q next to him because he was on the injury report. So there is no questionable, doubtful, probable.
It's questionable that he's going to be starting. That Skattebo might be taking his spot.
Look, and I'm not trying to knock Tracy. I'm just saying I'm really excited about Skattebo. And Tracy, I'm going to be honest, Tracy's kind of had a slow start. Now, a lot of that's the offensive line, but he's also dropped passes, and so he needs to step it up. So
the other thing to look at, and we'll talk about it more on Saturday too, is there are a lot of injuries across the, and we talked about this before. There's a lot of
flags. Holy shit, NFL! If you want to turn people off of your game, stop throwing so many goddamn flags. Wow.
True, but different than where I was going with this.
Yeah, sorry.
There are a lot of injuries across the NFL. Joe Burrow is out for the bulk of this year, if not the entire year. J.J. McCarthy's out for at least 4 weeks. There's questions on whether Jaden Daniels is going to play this weekend. So that's a thing. I mean, Washington has to play Vegas. Again, some of these teams are out there right now. They've got the Jets. Justin Fields is out. He's not playing. He's got a concussion. So quarterbacks are starting to get dinged up. San Francisco's already got Brock Purdy down. Mac Jones is starting. So things are going to happen over the next couple of weeks that maybe somebody comes a calling to the Giants for a quarterback. It's possible it's Winston. It's possible they might ask for Wilson, depending on where they're at and depending on where he's at. Right. There's a lot of things that keep an eye on, but it's not just that. And here comes the optimistic part of it. Landscape of the NFL changes quickly. If the Giants can just win, if they won that game Sunday.
Oh, John.
No. If they won that game Sunday, you're relevant because now there's a lot of other teams.
You're trying to play both sides of the coin. You're telling me that Daboll and the coaching staff stinks, but you're saying the Giants can get back into it.
That's not what I said. I said it would have changed it. You would have been part of the conversation just because there's so much stuff going on.
So what's your optimistic comment then?
That's where people would say I'm optimistic. I'm not saying.
No, you're right. No. If the Giants look, but again, they didn't win. That's the
problem. But like you said, though, it would have changed your own narrative if they had won. Even though the difference is minimal, it's overtime field goal. The Giants' offense did something I never thought I would see.
I've said this quote with you a half a dozen times. He said the difference between being 12-4 and 8-8 is winning the close football games. But this team isn't even close to being 8-8. And this team, again, John, this team could go winless. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the Giants don't win a game this year. I don't think that's statistically likely.
I'm not walking that line. There's some bad teams that are going to be playing later on that we have a lot. I mean,
I don't know.
They have offensive talent. I'm not. No,
I think you don't realize how bad the Giants 32nd in defense.
I understand that, but there are other teams. Baltimore is like 28th or 29th in defense. I'm not overly concerned about that. We've got the Saints on the schedule. You got New England.
All right, we'll see. If the Saints beat us, John, look out. That's all I'm saying.
If the Saints beat us at that point, then you can just everything is over. It's that bad.
Well, that's not out of. I mean, I wouldn't put money on the Giants beating the Saints. Anyway, that's me.
Come on.
All right, should we answer some questions before we get off here?
Well, I think we'll save the questions for Saturday. We've done a ton.
Okay.
We've been on for an hour and a half, so we can both say though, is there when does the clock for Brian Daboll really start to tick? If they get to 4 or 5 losses,
it started ticking on opening day when they lost that game. In my mind,
but you thought getting Dart bought him another.
Yeah, it did, but he's got to win some games. I thought he was going to win six games this year, 7 games this year. I don't see that now. I mean, because I was thinking they could go 2-0, but they're 0-2. Now I'm looking at the schedule and I'm going like, oh my God. Now, look, if they play like they did against Dallas on offense moving forward, and they can get the goddamn defensive coordinator to fucking get the defense to play just middle of the pack, they can pull off some upsets and Daboll will be saved. But part of me now is like, this is where I'm confused. This is where I'm like, I don't know what the right thing is to do, because part of me says Daboll picked Dart. I'm hoping Dart's the answer. I don't want a new coach to come in here and immediately say Dart's not my guy, and we're going to get another quarterback. Then I'll be like, oh, what are we doing? But then part of me says Daboll's can't coach as a head coach, and he can't pick defensive coordinators. So we're just wasting time with him. So part of me is like, how do we get out of this mess? This was the mess that you and I talked about months ago. If you keep Daboll and they draft a quarterback, they're in this no man's land, and that's exactly where they are right now. So instead of cleaning the slate, getting a clean slate, they're once again in this. And they remember they did this with Daniel Jones. They drafted a quarterback, started firing the coach, and then the GM, and then the new GM the new coaches were stuck with Daniel Jones, and that wasn't his guy, including Daboll. So now we're kind of in that. They've done it to themselves again. They have never, since they started this rebuild, which they won't admit to it, but they started this rebuild. They've never pulled the Band-Aid off and gotten rid of the coach, GM, and head coach and quarterback at the same time. They've always kept one or two of those guys and got rid of the other one, and they've never been in sync. And I feel like we're kind of there. So what do you think is going to happen? To me, if the Giants win 3 games this year, let's be generous. If they win 3 games, does Daboll keep his job?
Well, no, you know that I said from the beginning he's got to win games. How
many games?
I would think you've got to be at least in the 6 range to.
That's what I thought, like 6, right?
Yeah,
like 5 or 6, 5 minimum, right?
5 if you switched to Dart and he played a lot and he got you 3 of those 5 wins.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. So maybe even like if they were like if they were like 0-13 and Dart comes in at the end of the year and he wins 4 games in a row, then Mara goes, we you know how Mara is. He'll be like, we're going to keep Daboll and Dart. We got our guys right now. But then you're like, all right, if you keep Daboll, do you get rid of Shane Bowen? And if you get rid of Shane Bowen, who's going to want to come here? So they'll get somebody, but none of the top guys are going to come here because they're going to be like, I'm not going to go to the Giants. Daboll's on thin ice.
At other points in other seasons for the Giants, Jim Fossil regime is a good example. Sean Payton was removed as offensive coordinator in the middle of a season. I think the Giants switched offensive coordinators one time under Tom Coughlin. Could you see the Giants doing that defensively? Could you remove Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator, or at least the guy who's basically calling the defense? And if so, who on the staff would you give it to?
All right, I had to laugh because I just saw Dave Del Cole's mansion tattoos.
Yeah, no, I put that up there.
Dave,
I think one of us has tattoos, one of us doesn't.
I saw your Tyler Warren comment earlier too. All right, so your question is, can they fire Shane Bowen?
Or could they just demote him? Like move somebody else to call.
No, they won't demote him. They'd fire him. You can't demote.
Well, you've done it offensive coordinator wise. They've done it before, where the guy was demoted in the middle of the season.
Have you ever seen them demote a defensive coordinator in the NFL?
Not a I've seen them do it offensive coordinator. The Giants did it with Sean Payton.
I don't. They would fire him, and who would look? The odd thing, and I brought this up, is why was Jerome Henderson fired? Was it because again, we talked about this before. The media narrative was because Ty Banks, which I don't completely buy, because why would you have one player who's played one good year, or let me say decent year, his rookie year, and one atrocious year, dictate whether the guy that you interviewed for defensive coordinator at one point should leave? So my speculation all along was that he was let go because he didn't see eye to eye with Shane Bowen.
With Bowen.
But
yeah,
now
I agree with
Jerome
that.
Henderson's in Indianapolis, and Indianapolis is doing well. And Jerome Henderson's pass defense in Indianapolis is 7th in the NFL. Now, it's more complicated than that. I get it. But right now, he's probably laughing his ass off that the Giants are like 20. I think they're 29th or 28th in pass defense right now. And his Colts are 7th. So if Jerome Henderson was still here, the reason I'm bringing this up is Jerome Henderson was interviewed for the job at the same time Bowen was. So you could have fired Bowen, and Henderson would have made perfect sense in your scenario because they were already thinking about him and he was already, here. So I don't think they interviewed Patterson. They wouldn't be the new defensive back coach that came from the Jets. It wouldn't be the linebackers coach. I mean, so who would take over the job? Patterson, maybe? I guess it would be the only guy, right? Yeah, Giants Carb Crush. There you go.
I mean, that's what other. Yeah, you could you
Yeah,
certainly
I
could.
agree with you. I agree with
Yeah,
them.
I mean, it's a weird.
I don't see any other option. But do you really? I mean, do you see the Giants? I just don't see the Giants doing that. I guess that's my.
Probably
I don't know.
not.
What do you think? It just doesn't seem very
Probably not.
Giant-like to me. I know that a lot of people. I get frustrated as everyone else does, but I always see these comments about fire Daboll now, and then I'm like, well, then what? And then they're like, then they never answer. They never answer. What, you want Kafka to be the head coach? Is that going to really fix anything? Is you want Shane Bowen to be the head coach? I mean, so in the same thing with fire Bowen at this point. You're part of the thing. Once the season starts, you're screwed. In other words, you're kind of
to a degree, you are. Yes,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, dead man walking at that point. Yeah,
I mean, you can't fix a lot of this stuff once the season starts.
So to Kevin, to your point, I'll agree with it slightly that the Giants Wink's defense worked because they were able to get turnovers, but when we didn't, the defense really struggled. It did give up a lot of yards, and then continued to do so later on. It's a very helter-skelter defense. You either better have all the players or it isn't gonna.
This is the biggest myth that has gone on out there, and it's driving me crazy. All right, full disclosure here. I was all for Wink Martindale getting hired. I thought he was a great choice to be defensive coordinator. I remember when the Giants interviewed him for the head coaching job at one point and thought he might be a good head coaching candidate. Wink lost me after 2 years because his defenses here were awful.
Yes.
His defenses were ranked below Bowen's in 2022 and 2023. Statistically, Bowen's defense was not much better, but it was better ranked than those. Wink's defense did not create turnovers in 2022. It created a lot of turnovers in the second half of 2023. The reason I know this,
we had a lot early. We had a lot in the beginning of 22.
No, if you go back and look, we were writing about it. Both Cy and I were writing about the problem that this defense wasn't creating turnovers that season. And a lot of that had to do because our secondary, people forget how bad the personnel was on that 2022 defense. If you want to make any argument for Wink, the argument for Wink is this, that Wink was holding the defense together with Band-Aids in 2022, but statistically it was a train wreck, and they just weren't creating turnovers. It was the second half of 2023 where they went nuts, but his defense was terrible against the run. And people were saying, Wink against Dallas wouldn't have let that happen. Dallas ate Wink's defenses up. Dallas killed Wink's defenses. And so there's this whole myth with Wink being like this great defensive coordinator here. And the only thing that his defense did was for half a year, they went nuts on turnovers. And turnovers come and go. You never want to base your defense on turnovers. What you want to base your defense on is stopping the run and getting after the passer and preventing big plays. And Wink couldn't and beyond all that, Wink in Baltimore leaving was very fishy. We all wondered at the time, why did Harbaugh want him out of there? Because that was always weird. And then we found out because he basically launched a coup against Daboll, and now he's out of the NFL. So it'll be I don't know if Wink will ever be back in the NFL. My guess is word has gone around the league that he's been kind of blacklisted at this point. We'll see what happens, but I said this a lot on BBI this week. Don't romanticize mediocrity. And Giants have been doing, because we've been so bad for so long, Giants fans have started to think about players and coaches that were here during this horrible losing streak and thought, wow, I wish we could go back and have those guys. No, those guys weren't good. The guys that John and I romanticized back in the 80s and 2007 and 2011, those are the guys that you want to pine for. These guys that were with the Giants in 2015 or 2020, don't romanticize about those guys. They were awful on a terrible Giants team.
Turnover wise, there really wasn't a big difference between 22 and 23, 16 and 22, 19 and 23.
You're talking forced turnovers?
We're talking about the turnovers the Giants had.
You're talking about turnover differential.
I'm saying turnovers. The Giants, looking at the turnovers in the first 8 games of 22, the Giants, if I'm trying to do a real fast math, they had 8 turnovers.
I'll have to look it up, but Cy and I were regularly talking about in 2022 about the inability of this defense to force turnovers.
But if you look at 22 in the beginning, and I'm doing these just from memory, so I'm just doing.
I'm going to have to.
Carolina, Baltimore, Green Bay, but those were winning. Those were games that they won. But the point is, they were forcing them by being aggressive up front. They were forcing quarterbacks to make plays. Lamar Jackson threw an interception he didn't need to. He fumbled the ball because of being rushed. That's what the Giants need to do now. I'd rather you take the chance and get burned because your talent is coming after the quarterback. Use it. If you're not going to, there was no point in drafting a guy if you're not going to do that.
You got to stop the run and you got to stop the pass. That's what that makes good defense. I understand about the turnovers and stuff. Turnovers will come and go, but you've got to be fundamentally strong against stopping the run. Teams that win on defense are the ones that stop the run and make you one-dimensional and then get after the passer. Stop the run. Until the Giants stop the run, they're going to be a loser. And Wink's defense in Baltimore could stop the run. Shane Bowen's defense in Tennessee could stop the run. They come to the Giants, and neither one of them can stop the run. Now, Vrabel was really calling the defense in Tennessee, and that we talked about that from the very beginning. So Shane Bowen never really was the guy in Tennessee. But Wink got his groceries in 2023. He's the one who lobbied for Deonte Banks. The free agent guys that they brought in, like Bobby Okereke, that was a Wink guy. Shane went out and said, Wink, what do you need? And Wink got his guys, and his defense got worse. Except everyone remembers how they were creating turnovers like mad. And it wasn't the first half of the season. If you go game by game, like at the break, it was like they didn't have a lot of turnovers. And in the second half of that season, they went nuts. And that was the fun part. And that was the season. That's the season. Who's the quarterback who's now in Patriots? I can't even think of DeVito. was winning some games because the defense was going like crazy too. So, anyways, that's a different matter.
So
my point is just don't romanticize these old.
Oh, sure.
I mean, Wink Martindale's out of the NFL for a reason.
Yeah, and a lot of it isn't just his schemes; it's the shit he did behind the scenes, and he made it clear for a long time he wanted to be a head coach, and there's a reason why he didn't get one. And it wasn't just the Giants; other teams didn't hire him either. So he was.
He's not even a DC though.
I know now, but I mean, he was up for head coaching jobs before, and they just didn't. And there's probably a reason why. If you rub people the wrong way, or if it's kind of known that hey, this guy's kind of a me kind of guy, that can be a problem. And right now for Daboll, I don't know what the hell he is for a guy. He's a player's coach in a weird way, not in a great way. I feel like he's a guy that he spends way too much time trying to give like this weird persona. He's got a little bit of Belichick in him without any kind of resume behind him that says that you should.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're going to have to do shows moving forward, and these might be far more interesting to people who are listening to us on what do the Giants do from here. If they do get rid of a coach, what coaches should they look at? What do they do with Dart? What do they do with the defense? Who should they be looking at? Both personnel and is Joe Shane safe? I mean, all this stuff. I mean, what does Mara do? All this stuff. There's so many things going on, and a lot of this can change if the Giants pull off an upset. It's going to be a weird game. They've got to play a 0-2 Chiefs team in New York. I don't know what the stadium's going to be like. Is it going to be half Chief fans? Is it going to be a lot of empty seats, or are the Giant fans going to show up? And even if Russell Wilson coming off one of his best games ever, are they going to be calling for Jackson Dart to be playing? And are people going to look at the other side of the line, the other side of the field, and see Steve Spagnuolo over there and go, if we get rid of Brian Daboll, we want Spags back here. I mean, there's all these kind of subplots going on in this game that are coming up. So we have a lot to talk about in our next show with this stuff.
So with that, we'll end it here. We will do one on Saturday. We'll let you know the time as soon as we decide on when it's going to be. We'll do a lot of question and answers that day. We'll preview the game. I think a lot of it is going to be kind of what we touched on now, but we'll know some injury status and things like that. That'll be good to talk about, and some look at who may or may not play or who might be active and all that good stuff. So like, subscribe, and continue to comment. I love the comments on it. I try to respond to them as much as I can, and we'll catch you again real soon. So keep the faith. Well, just keep watching, I guess.